Hey everyone, welcome back to my 6-part series using the Scandi Style paper pad from the Paper Mill. In the first 2 parts, I used the pink paper for this card here with some scrap pattern paper, and this is the teal with the black and white pattern paper. And for each of these, I created 30 cards. Originally, I thought that I might create 180 cards from this paper pad by using a 2x3 on each of the card designs. But what I've found is, as I've moved on to part number 3, so if we'll put these aside, the third piece of pattern paper that I'm going to use is actually this one here. So I have 5 pieces of the same design. And what I found is if I do cut this into 2x3, I'm going to end up with very different pieces of pattern paper. So I'll end up with 2 with the houses, 2 that are plain wood grain, and 2 that are half wood grain and the teal and white design. Rather than do that, what I've decided to do is go for quality over quantity. I'll put these 2 aside. So this was 30 cards and 30 cards, so I've created 60 so far. This piece of paper, I thought I would look at a card sketch. So with that in mind, I went through all of the One Sheet Wonder templates from Jess Crafts, and I found this one here that I think would work quite well. I essentially have 3x1 at the bottom, which if I reverse this, could be the teal strip from the bottom. This is actually 1 1/4, so I think I'll adjust the design slightly and make this 3x1 1/4 from the base. And then I'll create the strips from this. And then what I'm gonna do is, according to Jess's design, this makes 2 cards. I'll use this pattern paper to make the 2 cards similar to this design. I've got my white card bases, I've got my grey panels, so I've got a standard A2 card base, so 5.5 by 4 1/4. My grey panels that I'm using today are 4 by 5 1/4. They will be on the back of each of the cards. I will then create the 3 panels. Now what I've decided to do is actually use some blue paper for my panels. So rather than do individual strips with multiple mats, I've just created 1 mat, and I'm going to attach the 3 slices of the pattern paper onto those, and then I'll use the teal strip across the middle, and I'll work out some kind of sentiment to add. So instead of getting 30 cards out of this design, I'm going to get 10. I'll get 2 per piece of paper, and as I said, I've got 5, so 10 cards. By the time I finish this, I'll have 70 cards, which means I'm 50% of the way through the paper pad, and I've got 70 cards, which is not bad. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is cut up my papers, and so I need to be a little bit careful about what I do with this design, because I am adjusting Jess's design a little bit. Alright, so I'm just going to do these one by one. Okay, so now I have my 5 pieces of paper that might be slightly different sizes, and I just need to cut these in half so I can use them as a panel across the designs. I'm chopping them in half at 3 inches. It's going to be important, I think, to keep these pieces in order. I will cut them one by one. Okay, so I've now finished cutting all of the strips. Now comes the puzzle piecing to put these back together. So the intent is to add these onto the do panels with the appropriate gap. The best approach is to do the outsides first and then do the middle, especially if I'm confident that the size of the blue is correct. Okay, so this is my panel. Now the intent is to pop this on top of a grey panel and then that onto the card front. I think what I'll do is I will complete one of the cards and then I'll create a time lapse of me finishing the rest, because they will all be exactly the same. So when I do my tape glider, I really try and do it close to the edge. This paper has a bit of heft to it, so I'm not having any trouble with it peeling back up. But if you have a lighter paper, it can really be important to have a tape glider go right to the edge so that it doesn't pull up. Okay, that's looking very straight so far, I think, which is better than I was expecting. Now I do have a whole bunch of scrap of my white cardstock from previous projects, and I'm going to use that to mount one of these pieces, and I'm going to go particularly close if I can, because this is a small piece and this pattern paper is very lightweight. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do a 1/2 inch border. Normally I would do narrower, but I think cards look better if you're consistent with the borders on the same design. I need to make a choice about whether I put this towards the top, so I've kind of covered up the template here, but if I move some of these out of the way. So the original intent is to have this quite low, but obviously one of the features for this card is the houses. So rather than put it in the middle and have it too symmetrical, I'm going to actually put it a little bit further up, I think. I don't think there's any kind of other way to put it that kind of makes any sense. So if I put it up here, and then I really need to think about what I'm going to do for a sentiment. I had actually thought that maybe I would just use, again, some of my scrap paper here, and I have a block ready to go. I would normally stamp sentiments onto Nina Solar White, but because I have these pieces right here, I'm just gonna stamp one of these. I will do the rest in bulk, and you will probably see me stamp a bundle of these, so I can either pop this straight on here, or I can mount it on a bit of the blue and then see if that actually looks better than the plain white. The question is, nice and simple or with the matte? I like them both, but I actually do think this is a really subtle paper, and when I put that blue on it, it draws the attention back to the base, and I want to draw the attention to the happy birthday, so I'm going to do it without the matting. So I've now finished my cards and I have 10 that are all the same. So this means as the conclusion of part 3 of my 6-part series, I've now made 70 cards with the Scandi Style paper pad. As a reminder, I created 30 of design 1 and 30 of design 2 with my 10 cards from today's design gives me a total of 70. This is a bit of a close-up of the card. I did use Jess's One Sheet Wonder template number 1 as a reference point. For the bottom strip down here, I did do the 1 1/4 inch and use that as the basis for here. And then everything else was the same, so I cut it into the 1 inch strips. But instead of matting each of the designs, I actually created one base layer and lined up the strips, just so it would be a little quicker to make. It did create a slightly simpler design and I really like it. I'm really happy with how these turned out in the end. Thanks so much for watching my video all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, leave a comment, or consider subscribing to my channel. And then keep an eye out for video number 4 of the 6-part series. Have a great day.